Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We'll continue reading from the Nectar of Devotion by Srila Prabhupada. Chapter number 28, Existential Ecstatic Love. Originally, this is Bhakti-rasāmṛta-sindhu by Rūpa Gosvāmī. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatam ham vande Shri Gurum Din Tarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram Hariyom Tat Sat. Chapter 28, Existential Ecstatic Love. When a devotee is always intensely affected by love for Krishna in a direct relationship with him, or even a little apart from him, his status is called existential ecstatic love. The symptoms originating from such existential ecstatic love are divided into three headings, namely moist, burnt, and dried up. Moist, burnt, and dried up. Moist existential ecstatic love aroused in connection with Krishna is divided into two, direct and indirect. Radharani was weaving a garland of kunda flowers, and upon hearing the vibration of Krishna's flute, she immediately stopped her work. This is an example of direct moistened existential ecstatic love. Indirect moistened existential ecstatic love is described in the following statement. Krishna, who is also called Purushottam, is to the eyes of Mother Yashoda just like the cloud is to the eyes of Chataki bird. When Krishna had been brought to Mathura, Mother Yashoda, being very anxious and angry, began to rebuke the king of Mathura. Burnt existential ecstatic love is divided into three, and one example is as follows. One day Mother Yashoda was dreaming that the gigantic demon Putana was lying on the courtyard of her house, and she immediately became anxious to seek out Krishna. When there are manifestations of ecstatic symptoms in the body of a non-devotee, these are called dried up symptoms of ecstatic love. The non-devotees are actually materialistic, but in contact with some pure devotee, they sometimes may manifest some symptoms of ecstasy. Devotional scholars call these dried up symptoms. There are 8 symptoms of existential ecstatic love: becoming stunned, perspiring, standing of the hairs on the body, faltering of the voice, trembling of the body, changing of bodily colors, shedding of tears, and devastation. The scientific explanation of these 8 symptoms is given by Rūpa Gosvāmī as follows. When the vital force of the life is in contact with the earth, one is stunned. When the same force comes into contact with water, there is the shedding of tears. When the same force comes into contact with fire, there is perspiration. When the force comes into contact with the sky, there is a complete devastation. And when that force comes into contact with the air, there is trembling, failing of the voice, and standing of the hairs on the body. These symptoms are sometimes manifested internally and sometimes externally. The pure devotee always feels such symptomatic expressions within himself, but being afraid of outsiders, he does not generally manifest them externally. Becoming stunned. The symptom of being stunned is caused by ecstatic tribulation, fearfulness, astonishment, lamentation, and anger. This symptom is exhibited by a stoppage of talking, a stoppage of movement, a feeling of voidness, and an extreme feeling of separation. When Uddhav was describing Krishna's pastimes to Vidur, he said, "One day the gopis became stunned when Krishna, in the dress of a gardening maid, entered the greenhouse and enlivened them with joking and laughter. Then when Krishna left the greenhouse, the gopis were seeing Krishna so ecstatically that it was as though both their minds and eyes were following him. These symptoms signified that although the gopis' business was not finished, they had become stunned with ecstatic love. Another example of being stunned took place when Krishna was surrounded by various wrestlers in the sacrificial arena of Kamsa. His mother Devaki then became stunned, and her eyes dried up when she saw Krishna among the wrestlers. There is also an example of the astonishment of Lord Brahma. It is explained in the 10th canto, 13th chapter, verse 56 of Srimad Bhagavatam that when Brahma understood that this cowherd boy was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, he became stunned. All of his sensory activities stopped when he saw all the cowherd boys again along with Krishna. Lord Brahma was so stunned that he appeared to be a golden statue with 4 heads. Also, when the residents of Braja found that Krishna had lifted Govardhan hill with his left hand, they became stunned. Astonishment caused by lamentation was exemplified when Krishna was entering into the belly of Bakasur demon, and all the demigods from higher planets became stunned with lamentation. A similar example of becoming stunned was visible in Arjun when he saw that Ashwathama was attempting to release his Brahmastra at Krishna. Perspiring. An example of perspiring because of jubilation is described in Srimad Bhagavatam. One Gopi addressed Radharani thus, "My dear Radharani, you are rebuking the sunshine unnecessarily, but I can understand that you are perspiring only because of you becoming too lusty at seeing Krishna." Perspiration caused by fearfulness was exhibited by Raktak, one of the servants of Krishna. One day Krishna dressed himself just like Abhimanyu, the husband of Radharani. Abhimanyu did not like Radharani's association with Krishna, and therefore when Raktak saw Krishna in the dress of Abhimanyu and thus mistook his identity, he began to strongly rebuke him. As soon as Raktak finally understood that it was Krishna in the dress of Abhimanyu, he began perspiring. This perspiration was caused by fearfulness. Perspiration due to anger was exhibited by Garud, the eagle who is the carrier of Vishnu. Once the heavenly king Indra was sending torrents of rain over Vrindavan, Garud was observing the incident from above the clouds, and because of his anger he began perspiring. Standing of hairs on the body. The standing of hair on the body was manifested when Mother Yashoda found within Krishna's mouth all of the universal planetary systems. She had asked Krishna to open his mouth wide just to see whether he had eaten dirt. But when Krishna opened his mouth, she saw only the entire earth. Not only the entire earth, but also many of the planets within his mouth. This caused a standing up of the hair on her body. The standing up of hair on the body resulting from jubilation is described in the 10th canto, 30th chapter, verse 10 of Srimad Bhagavatam, in connection with the gopis engaged in the rasa dance. During the rasa dance, Krishna disappeared all of a sudden with Radharani, and the gopis began to search him out. At that time, they addressed the earth and said, "Dear earthly planet, how many austerities and penances you must have undergone to have the lotus feet of Krishna always touching your surface. I think that you must be very jubilant because the trees and plants, which are just like hairs on your body, are standing up so gloriously. May we ask when you first got these symptoms? Have you been enjoying this jubilation since you were touched by the incarnation Vamana, or since you were delivered by the incarnation Vara?" Krishna would sometimes perform mock fighting along with the cowherd boys. When Krishna blew his horn in this mock fighting, Sridama, who was on the opposing side, felt his bodily hairs stand up. Similarly, when Arjun saw Krishna in his gigantic universal form, there was a standing of the hairs on his body, faltering of the voice. When Krishna was going to Mathura on the chariot driven by Akrur, Yashoda and all the gopis came to try to forbid him to pass and to block his way. At that time, Radharani was so perturbed that in faltering voice she requested Mother Yashoda to please stop Akrur. Faltering of the voice resulting from wonder was exhibited by Brahma. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, 13th chapter, verse 64, that after bowing down before Lord Krishna, when Brahma began to rise, he prayed to the Lord in a faltering voice. In the 10th canto, 29th chapter, verse 30, another example of faltering of the voice was exhibited by the gopis when they came to Krishna desiring to dance with him. Krishna asked them to go back to their husbands and homes. The gopis apparently became very angry and began to talk to Krishna with faltering voices. In the 10th canto, 39th chapter, verse 56 and 57 of Srimad Bhagavatam, a faltering voice due to jubilation was exhibited by Akrur when he was shown all of Vaikuntha planets resting within the river Yamuna. When Akrur understood that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he bowed his head to Krishna's lotus feet and with folded hands began to pray in a faltering voice. There are also examples of faltering of the voice caused by fearfulness. One of the Krishna's friends praised him. "Thus, my dear friend, your flute was given to your servant Patri, and when I asked him to return it, he began speaking in a faltering voice, and his complexion became yellow, trembling. When Krishna was trying to capture the demon Shankar, Radharani began trembling out of fearfulness. Similarly, trembling of the body was exhibited in Sahadev, the younger brother of Nakul. When Shishupal was vehemently blaspheming the Lord, Sahadev began to tremble out of anger. Trembling of the body was also exhibited by Radharani out of tribulation. Radharani trembled as she told one of the gopis, "Don't joke with this disappointing boy. Please ask him not to approach me because he is always the cause of all grief for us." Changing of bodily color, sometimes due to great aggrievement caused by the dealings of Krishna, the body changes color. The gopis therefore address the Lord thus: "Dear Krishna, due to a separation from you, all of your denizens of Vrindavan have changed their color. And because of this change of color, even the great sage Narad was thinking of Vrindavan as a white island in the ocean of milk." When Krishna and Balram were present in the arena of Kamsa, Kamsa's body changed color. Similarly, Indra's face changed color when he saw that Krishna was protecting all the denizens of Raja by lifting Govardhan hill. If the color change takes place due to excessive jubilation, the hue turns red because such a change of color is so rare. Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī does not further discuss this point. Tears out of jubilation, anger, or separation, there may be the pouring down of tears from the eyes. When such tears are very cold, they are due to jubilation, and when they are due to anger and tears become hot, in all cases there is a severe movement of the eyes and the eyes generally become reddish. There is also an itching sensation which causes the sufferer to rub his eyes. When the lotus eye Rukmini, the first queen of Krishna and Dwarka, was shedding tears out of ecstatic jubilation, she did not like the tears. There is a passage in the Hari Vamsa where Satyabhama begins to shed tears because of her great affection for Krishna. An example of shedding tears because of anger was exhibited by Bhim when he saw that Shishupal was insulting Krishna in the Rajsuya arena of sacrifice. Bhima wanted to kill Shishupal immediately, but because Krishna did not order him to do so, he became morose with anger. It is described that there were hot tears covering his eyes, as a thin cloud sometimes covers the evening moon. In the evening, when the moon is slightly covered by a thin cloud, it looks very nice. And when Bhima was shedding tears on account of his anger, he also looked very nice. In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 60th chapter, verse 23, there is a nice example of Rukmini shedding tears of lamentation. When Krishna and Rukmini were talking, Rukmini became frightened of separation from Krishna, and therefore she began scratching the earth with her red lotus-like nails. Because they were shedding tears, the black ointment from her eyes was dripping along with tears onto her body, which were covered with kumkum powder. Rukmini was so aggrieved that her voice was choked up. Devastation. When a person is confused by simultaneous happiness and tribulation and does not know what to do, the state of confusion is called pralaya or devastation. In this condition of pralaya, one sometimes falls down on the ground and all the symptoms of ecstatic love become manifest. When the gopis were searching after Krishna and all of a sudden he came out from the bushes and creepers, all of them became stunned and almost senseless. In this state, gopis appeared very beautiful. This is an example of pralaya or devastation in happiness. There are also instances of pralaya in distress. One such example is described in the 10th canto, 39th chapter, verse 15 of Srimad Bhagavatam, wherein Shukadev Goswami tells King Parikshit, "My dear king, when the gopis were missing Krishna, they were so much absorbed in meditation upon him that all of their senses stopped functioning and they lost all bodily sense. It was as though they had become liberated from all material conditions." Degrees of ecstatic symptoms. Out of the many ecstatic symptoms of the body, the symptom of being stunned is especially significant. According to the degree of being stunned, the vital force within the body becomes agitated, and due to such a state, the other ecstatic loving symptom sometimes becomes altered. These transcendental ecstatic symptoms gradually develop, and in the course of such development, they are sometimes called smoky, sometimes called blazing, and sometimes called shining. These three degrees are experienced for many, many years, and they extend to several parts of the body. Unlike the shedding of tears and faltering of the voice, the condition of being stunned is spread all over the body. The shedding of tears and the faltering of the voice are simply localized symptoms. The shedding of tears, however, sometimes makes the eyes become swollen and whitish, and sometimes the lens of the eyes become differently focused. Faltering of the voice may sometimes cause choking in the throat and extreme anxiety, as the different symptoms of these ecstatic manifestations are localized. They are accompanied by different local reactions. For example, when the throat is choked up because of the faltering voice, there may be a sound like gura. Such a sound choke the voice with extreme mental anxiety. There may be manifest in different ways. All these symptoms are listed under the dried up existential conditions known as smoky, and they are exhibited in different ways. Sometimes, while participating in ceremonies celebrating Krishna's pastimes or in the society of devotees, there is a dancing ecstasy. Such sentiments are called blazing. None of the above sentiments can be manifested without the basic principle of strong attachment for Krishna. In the smoky condition of such ecstatic expressions, the symptoms could otherwise be hidden. This type of symptoms was experienced by priest Gargmuni, who was performing some ritualistic ceremony in the house of Nand Maharaj. When he heard about Krishna's killing of Aghasur demon, there were some tears visible in his eyes, his throat was trembling, and perspiration covered his whole body. In this way, priest Gargmuni's beautiful face assumed a nice condition. When several such ecstatic symptoms are visible, the condition is called blazing. For example, one of the Krishna's friends told him, "My dear friend, as soon as I heard the sound of your flute from within the forest, my hands became almost motionless and my eyes became full of tears. So much so, in fact, that I could not recognize your peacock feather. My thighs became almost completely stunned so that I could not even move an inch. Therefore, my dear friend, I must acknowledge the wonderful vibration of your transcendental flute." Similarly, one gopi said to another, "My dear friend, when I heard the sound of Krishna's flute, I tried to hide myself from the reaction of the vibrations, but still I could not check the trembling of my body, and therefore all of my friends in the house could detect my attachment for Krishna without any doubt." When the ecstatic symptoms cannot be checked and they simultaneously appear in 4 or 5 different categories, the stage of ecstatic love is called shining. This example is cited in the connection that when the sage Narad saw Lord Krishna standing before him, his body became so stunned that he stopped playing on his veena because of his faltering voice. He could not offer any prayers to Krishna and his eyes filled with tears. Thus, Narad's ability to see Krishna was also obstructed. When similar symptoms were manifest in the body of Srimati Radharani, some of her friends criticized her. "Dear friend, you are blaming the aroma of the flowers for the tears in your eyes, you are rebuking the air for the standing of the hairs on your body, and you are cursing your walking in the forest for your thighs being stunned, and your faltering voice reveals the cause to be different. It is just your attachment for Krishna." Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī remarks that when various symptoms become manifest very prominently, the devotee's condition may be called the brightest. For example, a friend of Krishna addressed him as follows: "My dear Pitambar, because of separation from you, all the residents of Golok Vrindavan are perspiring, they are lamenting with different words, and their eyes have become moistened with tears. Actually, all of them are in great confusion. There is a supreme symptom of ecstatic love which is called Mahabhav. This Mahabhav expression was possible only in Radharani, but later on, when Krishna Chaitanya appeared to feel the mode of love of Radharani, he also expressed all of the symptoms of Mahabhav. Sri Rupa Goswami says in this connection that when the symptoms of ecstatic love becomes the most bright, the stage is accepted as Mahabhav. Srila Rupa Goswami further analyzes the ecstatic loving expressions into 4 divisions, which are called Sattvika Bhasa. Sometimes impersonalists who are not actually in devotional service may also exhibit such symptoms of ecstatic love, but this is not accepted as actual ecstasy. It is a reflection only. For example, sometimes in Varanasi, a holy city for impersonalist scholars, there may be seen a sannyasi crying from hearing the glories of the Lord. Impersonalists also sometimes chant the Hare Krishna mantra and dance, but their aim is not to serve the Lord, it is to become one with the Lord and merge into his existence. Rupa Goswami therefore says that even if the reactions to chanting are manifested in the impersonalist body, they should not be considered to be symptoms of actual attachment, but reflections only, just like the sun reflected in the dark room through some polished glass. The chanting of Hare Krishna, however, is so nice and transcendental that it will be eventually melt even the hearts of persons who are impersonalists. Rūpa Gosvāmī says that the impersonalist symptoms are simply reflections of ecstatic love, not the real thing. Sometimes it is found that when staunch logicians, without any trace of devotional service and without actually being understanding the transcendental glories of the Lord, sit down to hear the glories of the Lord, they appear to be melting and shedding tears. In this connection, there is a statement by a devotee who addresses the Lord thus: "My dear Mukunda, I can't express the glories of your pastimes. Even when the non-devotees hear your glorious pastime, they become..." Hey, my dear Mukunda, I cannot properly express the glories of your pastimes. Even when the non-devotees hear of your glorious pastimes, they become affected and shed tears and start to tremble. Such non-devotees are not actually melted, they are hard-hearted. But the influence of the glories of the Lord is so great that even the non-devotees sometimes shed tears. Sometimes it is found that a non-devotee who has practically no taste for Krishna and who follows no rules or regulations can by practice make a show of devotional symptoms, even crying in an assembly of devotees. This shedding of tears is not actually an ecstatic love expression. However, it is done simply by practice. Although there is no need to describe these reflections of ecstatic love, Rupa Goswami gives some instances where there is no actual devotional service and such expressions are manifested. Chapter 29, Expressions of Love for Krishna. There are some bodily symptoms which express overwhelming ecstatic love or the Vyabhichari Bhav. They are counted at 33 as follows: disappointment, lamentation, humility, guilt, fatigue, intoxication, pride, doubt, apprehension, intense emotion, madness, forgetfulness, disease, confusion, death, laziness, inertness, bashfulness, concealment, remembrance, argumentativeness, anxiety, thoughtfulness, endurance, happiness, eagerness, violence, haughtiness, envy, impudence, dizziness, sleepiness, and alertness. Disappointment. When one is forced to act in a way which is forbidden or to refrain from acting in such a way which is proper, he becomes regretful and thinks himself dishonored. At that time, there is a sense of disappointment. In this kind of disappointment, one becomes full of anxiety, sheds tears, changes bodily color, feels humility, and breathes heavily. When Krishna, in punishing the Kaliya serpent, appeared to have drowned himself in the poisonous water of the Yamuna, Nand Maharaj addressed Yashoda Devi thus: "My dear wife, Krishna has gone deep into the water, and so there is no longer any need to maintain our bodies, which are so full of sinful activities. Let us also enter into the poisonous water of the Yamuna and compensate for the sinful activities of our lives." This is an instance of severe shock where the devotees became greatly disappointed. When Krishna left Vrindavan, Subala, his intimate friend, decided to leave also. While leaving, Subala was contemplating that without Krishna there was no longer any pleasure to be found in Vrindavan. The analogy is given that as the bees go away from the flower that has no honey, Subala left Vrindavan when he found that there was no longer any relishable transcendental pastime there, pleasure there. In Danakeli Kaumudi, Srimati Radharani addressed one of her In Dankeli Kaumudi, Srimati Radharani addresses one of her friends in this manner: "My dear friend, if I cannot hear of the glorious activities of Krishna, it is better for me to become deaf, and because I am not unable to see him, it would be good for me to be a blind woman." This is another this instance of disappointment due to separation from Krishna. There is a statement from Harivamsa wherein Satyabhama, one of the queens of Krishna in Dwarka, tells her husband: "My dear Krishna, since I heard Narad glorifying Rukmini before you, I can understand that there is no need for any talking about myself." This is an instance of disappointment caused by envy. Rukmini and Satyabhama were co-wives, and because Krishna was husband to both, they naturally this is an instance of disappointment caused by envy. Rukmini and Satyabhama were co-wives, and because Krishna was a husband of both, there were naturally some feminine envy between them. So when Satyabhama heard the glories of Rukmini, she was envious of her and thus became disappointed. In this 10th canto, 51st chapter, verse 47 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is this statement, my dear Krishna, I cannot say that it is only that other people who are implicated in material existence, because I am so much entangled with the bodily concept of life. I am also so anxious about my family, home, wife, health, land, and kingdom. And because I have been so maddened by this material atmosphere, I'm thinking now that my life has been simply spoiled. This statement is an instance of disappointment caused by lamentation. According to Bharat Muni, this disappointment is inauspicious, but there are other learned scholars who have accepted such disappointments as being in the mood of neutrality and being a preservative of ecstatic love. Lamentation: when one is unsuccessful in achieving his desired goal of life, when one finds no fulfillment in his different present occupation, and one finds himself in reverse condition, and when one feels guilt. When one finds no fulfillment in his present occupation, when one finds himself in reverse condition, and when one feels guilt, at such time one is said to be in a state of lamentation. In this condition of lamentation, one becomes questioning, thoughtful, tearful, regretful, and heavy breathe. His bodily color changes and his mouth becomes dry. One aged devotee of Krishna addresses him in this way: my dear Krishna, O killer of the demon Aga, my body is now invalid due to old age. I cannot speak very fluently. My voice is faltering, my mind is not strong, and I am often attacked by forgetfulness. But my dear Lord, you are just like the moonlight, and my only regret is that for want of any taste for your pleasant shining, I did not advance myself in Krishna consciousness. This statement is an instance of lamentation due to one's being unable to achieve his desired goal. One devotee said, this night I was dreaming of collecting various flowers from the garden, and I was thinking of making a garland to offer Krishna. The one devotee said, this night I was dreaming of collecting various flowers from the garden, and I was thinking of making a garland to offer Krishna, but I am so unfortunate that all of a sudden my dream was over and I could not achieve my desired goal. This statement is an instant of lamentation resulting from non-fulfillment of one's duties. When Nand Maharaj saw his foster son Krishna embarrassed in the sacrificial arena of Kamsa, he said, how unfortunate I am that I did not keep my son bolted within the room. Similarly, I have brought him. So this statement is instant of lamentation resulting from non-fulfillment of one's duties. When Nand Maharaj saw his foster son Krishna embarrassed in the sacrificial arena of Kamsa, he said, how unfortunate I am that I did not keep my son bolted within a room. Unfortunately, I have brought him to Mathura, and now I see that he's embarrassed by this gigantic elephant named Kauvalya. It is, although the room of Krishna were eclipsed by a shadow of the moon or the earth. This is an instance of lamentation caused by worst conditions. In the 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse 9 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a statement by Brahma, my dear Lord, just see my impudence. You are the unlimited, the original personality of Godhead. The supersoul, and you rule all over the most perfect illusory energies, and just see my impudence. I wanted to supersede you by my own personal power, and I was very puffed up with this tiny power of mine, just as a simple spark from a fire cannot do any harm to the fire. So my bewildering potency was completely unsuccessful in thwarting your superior's illusory power. Therefore, I find myself to be most significant and insignificant, and think of myself as a most useless to person. Therefore, I find myself to be most insignificant and think of myself as the most useless person. This statement by Brahma is an instance of lamentation caused by committing an offense. Humility. A sense of weakness caused by distress, fear, or offensiveness is called humility. In such a humble condition, one becomes talkative, small in heart, dirty in mind, full of anxiety, and inactive. In the 10th canto, 51st chapter, verse 57 of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is the following statement by King Muchukunda. My dear Lord, because of my bad deeds in the past, I am everlastingly aggrieved. I am always suffering from my desires, but still my senses are never satisfied with material enjoyment. Somehow or other, by your grace, I am now in peaceful condition because I have taken shelter of your lotus feet, which are always free from all lamentation, fear, and death. O Supreme Protector, O Supreme Soul, O Supreme Controller, kindly give me your protection. I am so much embarrassed. This statement by Muchukunda is an instance of humility resulting from a severely miserable condition of material existence. When Uttara was attacked by the Brahmastra of Ashwatthama, she became afraid of losing her child Maharaj Parikshit, who was still within the womb. She immediately surrendered to Krishna and said, My dear Lord, kindly save my child. I do not mind if I myself must be killed by Brahmastra of Ashwatthama. This is an instant of humility caused by fear. In the 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse 10 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma says, O infallible one, I am born in the mode of passion, and therefore I have been falsely proud of being creator of this material world. My false pride was just like dense darkness, and in this darkness I had become blind. In my blindness, I was considering myself a competitor to you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But my dear Lord, even though I am accepted as the creator of this universe, I am eternally your servant. Therefore, kindly always be compassionate towards me and excuse me in that way. This statement of by Brahma is an instance of humility resulting from committing an offense. Sometimes there is humility due to shyness. For example, when Krishna stole all the garments from the gopis while they were bathing in the river, all of them begged Krishna not to commit this injustice upon them. The gopis addressed him thus, Dear Krishna, we know that you are the son of Nanda Maharaj and that you are the most beloved of all Vrindavan and that you are very much loved by us also. But why are you giving us this trouble? Kindly return us our garment. Just see how we are trembling from the severe cold. This humility was due to their shyness from being naked before Krishna. Guilt. When a person blames himself for committing an inappropriate action, his feeling is called guilt. One day, Srimati Radharani was churning yogurt for Krishna. At that time, the jeweled bangles on her hands were circling around, and she was also chanting the holy name of Krishna. All of a sudden, she thought, I'm chanting the holy name of Krishna, and my superiors, my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law, may hear me. By this thought, Radharani became over anxious. This is an instance of feeling guilty because of devotion to Krishna. One day, the beautiful-eyed Srimati Radharani entered into the forest to collect some flowers to prepare a garland for Krishna. While collecting the flowers, she became afraid that someone might see her and she felt some fatigue and weakness. This is an instance of guilty feelings caused by labor for Krishna. There is a statement in Rasa Sudhakara that after passing the night with Krishna, Radharani became so weak that she was unable to get up from bed. When Krishna took her hand to help her, Radharani felt guilty about having passed the night with him. Fatigue. One feels fatigue after walking a long distance, after dancing. And in this kind of fatigue, there's dizziness. One day, Yashoda was chasing Krishna in the yard after he had offended her. After a while, Yashoda became very fatigued and thereby she was perspiring and her punched hair became loosened. This is an instance of becoming fatigued because of working too much. Sometimes all of the cowherd friends of Krishna along with Balram danced together in some ceremony. At these times the garlands on their necks would move and the boys would begin to perspire. Their whole bodies became wet from their ecstatic dancing. This is an instance of fatigue caused by dancing. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto 33rd chapter verse 20 it is said that after enjoying love affairs with Krishna by dancing, embracing and kissing, the gopis would sometimes become very tired, and Krishna, out of his causeless mercy and compassion, would smear their faces with his lotus hands. This is an example of fatigue caused by laboring in the rasa dance. When one becomes arrogant with false prestige due to drinking intoxicants or being too lustful, the voice becomes faulty, the eyes become swollen, and there are symptoms of redness on the body. There is a statement in the Lalit Madhav that Lord Baldev, intoxicated from drinking excessive quantities of honey, once began to address the ants, O you kings of the ants, why are you hiding yourselves in these holes? At the same time, he also addressed the kings of heaven, O King Indra, you plaything of Shachi, why are you laughing? I am now prepared to smash the whole universe, and I know that Krishna will not be angry with me. Then he addressed Krishna, my dear Krishna, tell me immediately why the whole world is trembling and why the moon has become elongated. And oh, you members of the Yadu dynasty, why are you laughing at me? Please give me back my liquors made of honey from the Kadamba flower. Srila Rūpa Gosvāmī prays that Lord Balram will be pleased with all of us while he is thus talking just like an intoxicated person. In this state of intoxication, Balram felt tired and lay down for rest. Generally, those who are exalted personalities lie down when they feel intoxicated, whereas those who are mediocre laugh and sing during intoxication, and those who are lowly use vulgar language and sometimes cry. Such intoxication is manifested according to different ages and mentalities. Srila Rupa Goswami does not describe further in this direction because there is no necessity for such a discussion. There is another description of the symptoms of intoxication in the person of Sri Radharani after she saw Krishna. Sometimes she was walking hither and thither. Sometimes she was laughing. Sometimes she was covering her face. Sometimes she was talking without any meaning, and sometimes she was praying to her associate gopis. Seeing these symptoms in Radharani, the gopis began to talk among themselves. Just see how Radharani has become intoxicated simply by seeing Krishna before her. This is an instance of ecstatic love in intoxication. Pride. Expressions of ecstatic love in pride may be the result of excessive wealth, exquisite beauty, a first-class residence or the attainment of one's ideal goal. One is also considered proud when he does not care about the neglect of others. Bilvamangal Thakur said, my dear Krishna, you are leaving me, forcibly getting out of my clutches, but I shall be impressed by your strength only when you go forcibly from the core of my heart. This is an instance of feeling pride in ecstatic love for Krishna. Once during the Rasa dance, when Radharani left the arena and Krishna went to seek her out, one of the dear friends of Radharani addressed Krishna thus, my dear Krishna, you have been very much obliging in serving the form of our Sri Radharani, and now you have left all the other gopis to search for her. Please allow me to inquire how you want her to treat you. This is an instance of feeling pride on account of exquisite beauty. Sometimes Radharani felt pride within herself and said, although the cowherd boys prepare nice flower garlands for Krishna, when I present my garland to them, he becomes struck with wonder and immediately accepts it and put it on his heart. Similarly, in the 10th canto, 2nd chapter, verse 33 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma says, my dear Madhusudan, persons who are pure devotees of your Lordship actually feel your ecstatic friendship, and as such they are never vanquished by enemies. They know they are always protected by you, and so they can matter of factly pass over the heads of their enemies without any care. In other words, one who has taken complete shelter under the lotus feet of the Lord is always proud of being able to conquer all enemies. One weaver at Mathura addressed Krishna in this way, my dear King of Vrindavan, I have become so proud of your causeless mercy upon me that I do not even count upon the mercy of the Lord of Vaikuntha, which is sought after by many great sages in deep meditation. In other words, although the yogis and great sages sit in meditation upon Lord Vishnu, who is residing in Vaikuntha, a devotee of Krishna is so proud that he does not consider such meditation to be very valuable. This feeling of pride is all due to one's having achieved the highest goal of life, Krishna. Doubt. After Lord Brahma had stolen all of the cows and cowherd boys from Krishna, he was trying to go away, but all of a sudden he became doubtful about his stealing affairs and began to watch on all sides with his 8 eyes. Lord Brahma has 4 heads and therefore he has 8 eyes. This is an instance of ecstatic love and doubt caused by stealing. Similarly, just to please Krishna, Akru stole the Shamantak Mani, a stone which can produce unlimited quantities of gold, but later on he repented his stealing. This is another instance of ecstatic love for Krishna in doubt caused by stealing. When the king of heaven Indra was causing torrents of rain to fall on the land of Raja, he was advised to surrender himself at the lotus feet of Krishna. At that time, Indra's face became very dark because of doubt. Apprehension: when a person becomes disturbed in his heart by seeing lightning in the sky, by seeing a ferocious animal, or by hearing a tumultuous sound, his state of mind is called apprehensive. In such a state of apprehension, one tries to take shelter of something which provides safety. There may be standing of the hairs on the body, trembling of the body, and sometimes the committing of mistakes, and sometimes the body may become stunned. In the Padyavali, there is the following statement: My dear friend, Krishna's residence in the demonic circle at Mathura under the supremacy of the king of demons Kamsa is causing me much worry. This is one instance of apprehending some danger to Krishna and ecstatic love for him. When Vrishasur appeared in Vrindavan as a bull, all the gopis became greatly affected with fear. Being perturbed in that way, they began to embrace the tamal tree. This is an instance of fear caused by a ferocious animal and of the search of shelter while remembering Krishna in ecstatic love. Upon hearing the jackals crying in the forest of Vrindavan, Mother Yashoda sometimes became very careful about keeping Krishna under her vigilance, fearing that Krishna might be attacked by them. This is an instance of ecstatic love for Krishna and fear caused by tumultuous sound. This kind of fear is a little feeling different from being actually afraid. When one is afraid of something, he can still think of past and future, but when there is a kind of ecstatic apprehension, there is no scope for such thinking. Intense emotion. Emotion is caused by something very dear, by something very detestable, by fire, and by strong wind, by strong rainfall, by some natural disturbance, by the sight of a big elephant, or by the sight of an enemy. When there is an emotion caused by seeing something very dear, one can speak very swiftly and use kind words. When there is emotion caused by seeing something detestable, one cries very loudly. When there is emotion caused by seeing fire, one tries to flee. When there may be also be trembling of the body, closing of the eyes, and tear in the eyes. When one becomes emotional on account of a strong wind, one tries to run very swiftly and rubs his eyes. When one is emotional because of rainfall, one takes an umbrella and there is tension in his body. When there is emotion due to sudden disturbance, one's face becomes discolored, one becomes struck with wonder, and there is trembling of the body. If there is emotion from seeing an elephant, one may jump and show various signs of fear, and sometimes one may keep looking behind him. When there is emotion due to the presence of an enemy, one looks for a fatal weapon and tries to escape. When Krishna returned from the forest of Vrindavan, Mother Yashoda was so emotional from seeing her son that milk began to flow from her breast. This is an instance of emotion caused by seeing a dear object. In the 10th canto, 23rd chapter, verse 18 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadev Gosvāmī informs King Parikshit, My dear king, the wives of the Brahmanas were usually very much attached to the glorification of Krishna, and they were always anxious to get an opportunity to see him. Because of this, when they heard that Krishna was nearby, they became very anxious to see him and immediately left their homes. This is an instance of emotional activity caused by the presence of someone very dear. When Putana, the demoniac witch, was struck down and killed by Krishna, Mother Yashoda was struck with wonder and began to cry emotionally. Oh, what is this? What is this? When she saw that her dear baby Krishna, was playing on the chest of the dead demoniac woman, Mother Yashoda, at a loss of what to do, began to walk this way and that. This is an instance of being emotional on account of seeing something ghastly. When Krishna uprooted the 2 Arjun trees and Yashoda heard the sound of the trees crashing down, she became overcome with emotion and simply stared upward, being too bewildered to know what else to do. This is an instance of being emotional from hearing a tumultuous sound. When there is a forest fire in Vrindavan, all the cowherd men assemble together and desperately appeal to Krishna for protection. This is an instance of emotion caused by fire. The whirlwind demon known as Trinavrata once carried Krishna off from the ground and blew him around along with some very big trees. At that time, Mother Yashoda could not see her son, and she was disturbed that she began to walk this way and that. This is the instance of emotion caused by severe wind. In the 10th canto, 25th chapter, verse 11 of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a description of Indra's causing severe torrents of rain at Vrindavan. All the cows and cowherd boys became so afflicted by the wind and cold that they all gathered together to take shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna. This is an instance of emotion caused by severe rainfall. There were severe torrents of hail when Krishna was staying in the forest of Vrindavan, and the elderly persons bade him, Krishna, don't you move now. Even persons who are stronger and older than you cannot move, and you are just a little boy, so please stay still. This is an instance of emotion caused by heavy hailing. When Krishna was chastising Kaliya in the poisonous water of Yamuna, Mother Yashoda began to speak emotionally, "Oh, see how the earth appears to be trembling. There appears to be an earth tremor, and in the sky tears are flying here and there. My dear Krishna, my dear son has entered into the poisonous water of the Yamuna. What shall I do now?" This is an instance of emotion resulting from a natural disturbance. In the arena of Kamsa, when Krishna was attacked by big elephants, all of the ladies present began to address him in this way, "My dear boy, please leave this place immediately. Please leave this place immediately. Don't you see the big elephants coming to attack you? Your innocent gazing upon them is causing us too much perturbation." Krishna then told Mother Yashoda, "My dear mother, don't be perturbed by the appearance of the elephants and horses that are so forcibly coming and raising dust, causing blindness to these lotus-eyed women. Let even the Keshi demon come before me. My arms will still be adequate for victory, so please don't be perturbed." In the Lalit Madhav, a friend tells Mother Yashoda how wonderful it is that when Shankachura demon, vast and strong as a great hill, attacked your cupid-like beautiful son, there was no one present in Vrindavan to help, and yet the demon was killed by your little son. It appears to be due to the result of severe penances and austerities in your past lives that your son was saved in this way. In the same way, Lalit Madhav, there is an account of Krishna's kidnapping Rukmini at her royal marriage ceremony. At that time, all the princes present began to converse among themselves, saying, "We have our elephants, horses, chariots, bows, arrows, and swords, so why should we be afraid of Krishna? Let us attack him. He is nothing but a lusty cowherd boy. He cannot take away the princess in this way. Let us all attack him." This is an instance of emotion caused by the presence of enemies. Srila Rūpa Gosvāmī is trying to prove by the above examples that in relationship with Krishna, there is no question of impersonalism. All personal activities are there in relationship with Krishna. Madness. Srila Billamangal Thakur prays in his book as follows: "Let Srimati Radharani purify the whole world because she has surrendered herself completely unto Krishna out of her ecstatic love for him. She sometimes acted just like an adult person and attempted to churn yogurt, although there was no yogurt in the pot. And seeing this, Krishna became so enchanted by Radharani that he began to milk a bull instead of a cow." These are some of the instances of insanity, of madness in connection with the love affairs of Radha and Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that when Krishna entered the poisonous waters of the Yamuna, Srimati Yashoda Devi went insane. Instead of searching for curative herbs, she began to speak to the trees as if they were snake chanters with folded hands. She began to bow down to the trees, asking them what is the medicinal herb which can check Krishna's dying from this poisonous water. This is an instance of insanity caused by some great danger. How a devotee can be in a state of insanity because of ecstatic love is described in the 10th canto, 30th chapter, verse 4 of Srimad Bhagavatam. When the gopis were searching for Krishna in the forest of Vrindavan, the gopis were loudly singing the glories of Krishna and wandering from one forest to another in search of him. They knew that Krishna is not localized but all-pervading. He is in the sky, he is in the water, he is in the air, he is in the super soul in everyone's heart. Thus the gopis began to inquire from all kinds of trees and plants about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is an instance of ecstatic madness on the part of the devotee. Similarly, there are symptoms of diseases caused by the ecstatic love. This condition is credited by learned scholars as being Mahabhav. This highly elevated condition is also called Divyonamad or transcendental madness. Forgetfulness. When Krishna was absent from Vrindavan and was staying in Mathura, Srimati Radharani sent news to him that his mother, the queen of Raja, was feeling such separation from him that there was foam coming from her mouth like the foam on the shore of the ocean, and sometimes she was raising her arm like the waves of the ocean, and because of her intense feeling of separation, She was rolling on the ground and creating a tumultuous roaring sound, and sometimes she was remaining completely silent like a calm sea. These symptoms of separation from Krishna are called apasmar, or forgetfulness. One completely forgets his position when he manifests these symptoms in ecstatic love. Another message was once sent to Krishna informing that after he had killed Kamsa, one of the Kamsa's demon friends had gone insane. This demon was foaming at the mouth, waving his arms and rolling on the ground. This demoniac demonstration is in relationship with Krishna in a ghastly humor. This mellow or flavor is one of the indirect relationships with Krishna. The first five kinds of relationships are called direct, and the other seven are called indirect. Some way or other, the demon must have had some relationship with Krishna, because these symptoms developed when he heard that Krishna had already killed Kamsa. Srila Rūpa Gosvāmī remarks that there is also transcendental excellence in this kind of symptom disease. When Krishna was absent from Vrindavan and was staying at Mathura, some of his friends informed him, "Dear Krishna, because of their separation from you, the inhabitants of Vraja are so afflicted that they appear to be diseased. Their bodies are feverish and they cannot move properly. They are simply lying down on the ground and breathing heavily." In the 10th canto, 12th chapter, verse 44 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Maharaj Parikshit asked about Lord Ananta, and upon hearing this question, Shukadev Goswami began to show symptoms of collapsing. Yet he checked himself and answered King Parikshit's question in a mild voice. This collapsing condition is described as a feverish state resulting from ecstatic pleasures. There is another statement in Srimad Bhagavatam telling of the damsels of Vraja meeting Krishna at the sacred place of Kurukshetra many years after their childhood pastimes. When they met in the sacred place, all the gopis became stunned by the occurrence of a solar eclipse. Their breathing, blinking of the eyes, and all similar activities stopped, and they stood before Krishna just like statues. This is another instance of a diseased condition resulting from exuberant transcendental pleasures. So we'll continue our reading from chapter 30 next time. Thank you for joining. Hariam Tat Sat, Hare Krishna. And today is the start of Bhisham Panchak on Devuthani Ekadashi. Happy Bhisham Panchak and happy Ekadashi to everyone.